This episode is brought to you by iZotope. Our friends over at iZotope create the most thoughtfully and intuitively designed software for audio repair, mixing, and mastering. I use their tools every day for the podcast, and I love it. And I think you will too. Go over to iZotope.com and check it out. That's iZotope.com. iZotope. Use the code FRET10 at checkout for a 10% discount. That's all caps, F-R-E-T, and the number 10.
Allow me to live and breathe like a man.
You've heard his words on classic albums like Pacific Ocean Blue and Friends. His 1969 collaboration with Brian Wilson, A World of Peace Must Come, gained almost legendary status as one of pop's most storied lost albums, before being resurrected to great acclaim by Light in the Attic in 2008. Now you're cordially invited to take a trip into the mind of poet and songwriter Stephen J. Kalinich. Heyday Again Records presents I Love My Life, a postcard from one of the last standing poets of peace and excitation. Order your copy today. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich and Friends. You'll see why heavy hitters like Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Paul McCartney, Steve Cropper, P.F. Sloan, and Diana Ross have all worked with him. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich. Order today at realgonemusic.com. Again, that's realgonemusic.com. The second single from Future Prophet Records is here. Birthday Girl presents Never the Sound, available right now on Future Prophet Records. That's Future, Prophet, records.com. Order now.
I went to Capitol for a meeting to talk about how to reissue the catalog. And I suggested, we should do them as twofers. They're very short albums. We should find bonus tracks because I knew by then there was lots of stuff.
That was you? That was your idea?
Yeah. And they went, great. And then, of course, they turned around and said, thank you for the idea. Thank you for giving us the idea. We'll take it from here. And to his credit, Landy, not because of any love for me, but because I answered to him, or because, I was his guy, said, oh no, you are not going to do that, Capitol. If you don't use Mark, you will never get Brian to do anything for you ever again.
Why do you think he went to bat for you? Was it because he felt an easy way of working with you? Well,
probably partly. I mean, he knows where I am, but also, it was just straight up pissing on trees, as I like to say, proving who's in charge here.
It's amazing. So just like a random power ploy by a complete megalomaniac wound up changing your life. Welcome to another episode of Discograffiti's wildly in-depth Beach Boys series and Your Dreams Come True, where Brian Wilson freaks like you and me get our chance to delve deep into the barely believable history and prodigious discography of my favorite band of all time, and also coincidentally the best, along with a slew of over 50 top-shelf guests, ranging from musicians inspired by their work, family members, documentary directors, songwriting collaborators, Beach Boys authors, producers, touring band members, and for good measure, some of the Beach Boys themselves. I'm your host, Dave Gebroe, and special thanks goes out to co-producers Chuck Granata, Dennis Dyken, and Mark Freed, without whom this series would not have happened. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. In this episode, legendary producer and audio engineer Mark Linett takes a deep dive stroll along with me through his entire career. Since 1988, he's been the engineer of choice for Brian Wilson's recordings. In 1996, Mark created the first true stereo mix of Pet Sounds. He's also co-produced nearly all of the band's archival releases, including 1997's The Pet Sound Sessions, 1998's Endless Harmony soundtrack, 2003's Hawthorne, California, and 2011's The Smile Sessions, as well as 2021's Feel Flows box set and 2022's Sail on Sailor box set. In addition to earning 3 Grammy Awards, he was nominated for Best Engineered Album for his work on 2004's Brian Wilson Presents Smile. He's also worked with Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction, Los Lobos, Rickie Lee Jones, and Randy Newman. Here are just a few of the many things that Mark discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. Mark's first few unillustrious gigs on his path to break into the music industry, his early work massaging Jimi Hendrix outtakes into an extension of the Geniuses catalog, Mark's love of the Beach Boys leading up to his work on Brian Wilson's debut 1988 solo album, Mark's genius brainstorm of releasing the Beach Boys catalog as those rightly celebrated twofer releases, assembling the Pet Sound Sessions and the Smile Sessions, and the serendipitous story of how he wound up in this industry in the first place. For over 4 years now, Discograffiti's Friday episodes have been completely free, and it's been my pleasure. But for a variety of reasons, Discograffiti's now moved to the subscription-based Patreon as our primary platform. Moving forward, our public stream will feature a teaser of the Friday episode and a Tuesday teaser of the bonus episode, and that's all. But here's the good news. Only $5 a month will get you the weekly Friday podcast to which you become accustomed. That's it. It's a no-brainer at just $1 an episode. And just that little bit will be what's required to help the show survive. To sweeten the pot, you'll also get regular installments of the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. That's Rudy Fishman's podcast within a podcast featuring our Patreon members as guests. You'll also get access to over 100 back episodes of that show. The $10 Lieutenant tier gets you all that, plus access to half of the Patreon archive. That's hundreds of additional episodes, plus copies of my personal show notes, which include invaluable research, star ratings, and reviews. But the $20 major tier is the place to be, unless you can support the show on even higher tiers, which, if you can afford it, offers substantial perks, including advertising on the show and selecting the guests and artists I cover. With the major tier and above, you get it all. The Monday bonus episodes, aka the best stuff, the Friday show, the Soldiers of Sound podcast, plus access to the entire archive. That's many hundreds of Patreon episodes, an absolutely endless barrage of music entertainment, including 50 episodes of The Private Press with Paul Major, Rock Cousteau, Queasy Listening, and so much more. This tier will also be the only way to access the entire upcoming Spirit series, the entire Love series, the entire Lenny Waronker series, and the entire Jefferson Airplane series. Frankly, it'll keep you busy for the rest of your life. So support the podcast that's been supporting you for years. Discograffiti's calling, and it needs you. So don't risk feeling guilty by not giving. But enough of me yapping. Go on, subscribe now. Visit patreon.com/discograffiti and find the tier that's right for you. And away we go then. Is there one piece of music on any of the projects that you've worked on for the Beach Boys that wouldn't necessarily be something that I would think of off the top of my head that you think all the time, like, I cannot believe the revelation that was in being able to put that together? Is there one piece that really stands out to you? You know, is it Smile? Is it a certain piece on Smile?
No, it's all kinds of things. But I mean, if you want to, probably the biggest revelation was the day, for some reason, in the middle of doing the '88 solo record, one day, probably at Landy's suggestion, for God knows what reason, maybe, apparently they used to make tapes of the old sessions to play for Brian to remind him of who he used to be in the studio or something. Anyway, so one day, for no reason, or maybe Russ suggested, I don't remember, we got a 1-inch 8-track rented in, and they sent over the 8-track master for, well, it's half of Pet Sounds. And that's where I first heard that background, that unused background for Don't Talk. And that, that was like that was a dream come true for me, to, record that by then I knew intimately, and to then be able to go, oh, wow, that's, take the vocals out and let's hear, oh, wow.
Tell me how you even got into doing this in the first place.
Well, how I finally got in the building, if you will, got my foot in the door. In 1975, I had basically, put my career aspirations on hold and succumbed to my parents' insistence that I go back to college. I grew up in an age when, with no particular rhyme or reason, unless you wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, you graduated high school and you went to college. I don't know what you're going to do with your college degree, but anyway. After a few years of knocking around trying to be in showbiz, I was back at college. I was going to Boston University.
That's where I went.
Oh, okay. Howard Stern. I'm in the communication school. God knows what that would have meant.
I went to communication.
But anyway,
well.
I'm still knocking around. There's only 2 or 3 studios in Boston, but I'm going around knocking on doors. And for some reason, I decided to go out to Hanley Sound, which was in Boston or in Cambridge or something. And they weren't a recording outfit. They did PA. They had done Woodstock and they did the Fillmores, and I don't know what they were up to in 1975, but they still existed. And they had nothing for me. But I started dating the receptionist and have a social life. Among other things, she had been, if you read Howard Kalin's book, I forget her name now off the top of my head, but he talks about her as she should have been his 5th wife. But instead, she left California and moved back to Boston. Now she's the receptionist. So I come home from my photography class on probably a Thursday or Friday afternoon. And I either answer the phone or maybe my roommate took a message. I've been thinking about this lately because there were no answering machines. I certainly didn't have an answering service. Had I gone to a movie, that we wouldn't be having this conversation. Anyway, she tells me that Hanley Sound has supplied a new front of house mixer for Frank Zappa, who is starting his tour in New Haven tonight. And the guy is deathly ill and can't do the tour. They need somebody desperately and now. So I called the road manager. This is like 3:00 in the afternoon. And, I tell him enough to make him realize that, yeah, I know how you plug a microphone in. So, okay, get down here. So I get on a prop plane, fly from Boston to New Haven with a briefcase, with a toothbrush and a couple of T-shirts and some underwear, get to the show, finally find the road manager. Just as Mountain is coming off, they were the opening act. And the road manager says, okay, go out there and watch what this guy does. You're taking over after tonight. Well, I go, I've been a huge fan of Zappa. I've only seen him once. I saw him on the previous tour in Boston. I go out the front house, and about 10 minutes into the show, the guy I don't know what was wrong with him. I never found out. He leaves, and I sort of, maintain what's going on. He comes back once for about 5 minutes and then leaves, never to be seen again. So I mix the rest of the show, and I know what to do. The show's over. I start packing up. I don't just sit there on my hands. And the road manager comes out, a nice, wonderful guy named Marty Perros, and says, okay, here's the deal. It's $400 a week, $25 a day per diem. If you get caught using drugs, you're fired. And the next morning, I find myself on the tour bus, with only one at that point, with Frank, the band, the crew, and Captain Beefheart. I mean, that's just what happened to me. And from there, it was who I met that I could get involved with that led me to, when the Zappa gig ended, go to work for Earth, Wind & Fire. And I met George Massenburg, who helped me get a job finally out here in a good studio, Sunset Sound, where I met somebody who, when I left there, recommended me to Warner Brothers. And I worked at Amigo till that studio closed in the 80s. And it's where I got the Hendrix account, any number of connections.
Which Rickie Lee Jones records did you work on?
I worked on Pirates.
Pirates is my favorite. We Belong Together is her best song.
I worked on Pirates a lot. And then I was the only engineer on Girl in a Volcano and Magazine. And I did some work on Flying Cowboys and Naked Songs. And I'm actually back shepherding her catalog again after all these
That's
years.
awesome. I talked at great length with Lenny about Pirates because the debut gets all the hype, and I love the debut, but Pirates is truly a masterpiece. All right, that about does it. To hear the full episode, just visit patreon.com/discograffiti and either subscribe as a private or higher, or just purchase it as a one-off. If you are a fan of the show, please do one of those two to help ensure Discograffiti's continued existence. Stay tuned, because next week brings upon us what is unquestionably one of the very best interviews I've ever done. A very revealing, exclusive 4-part series with Lenny Waronker, one of the great producers and studio heads the music industry has ever seen. It's a stroll through his entire career, with particular focus on the first album he ever produced, a massive deep dive on Van Dyke Park's debut masterpiece, Song Cycle. Ever hear a former studio head peel off the bark and get real about his deep-seated fears and anxieties? This chat with Lenny absolutely blew my mind. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then come Tuesday, the major tier gets a very special treat. Tuesday's bonus episode is Spirit Part 4, which covers the period that kicks off the most interesting era of the band as far as Discograffiti sees it. There will be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Tuesday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Mark Linett, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, my mom, my dad, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, and access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the classic rock and roll from the 1960s is to go to the Beach Boys Season 1, Catch a Wave, 1961 to 1964, from episode 189 on, the Righteous Brothers Bill Medley interview, that's 181 and 182, my interview with the Free Design, that's 160 to 162, my epic interview with the Mamas and Papas Michelle Phillips, that's 141 to 159, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, that's 137, my 12-hour interview with Terry Kirkman and Jules Alexander from the Association, that's 109 to 113, Vashti Bunyan reading her entire output, that's 103 to 104, Sergio Diaz from Os Mutantes, that's 86 and 87, Bert Summer, that's 83 and 84, Sweetwater is episode 79, a tribute to David Crosby, 77 and 78, Andrew Tuttle rates the Monks, 74, Jim Florentine on Black Sabbath is 64 to 68, Lou Barlow on the Zombies is 59 and 60, Marvin Gaye biographer David Ritz rates Marvin Gaye, that's 45 to 47. Blind Faith is 43. Anthony Fantano rates the Velvet Underground, it's 32 and 33. Bob Forrest rates the band is 25 and 27. Monkees manager Andrew Sandoval rates the Monkees, that's 22 and 23. Don Randy rates David Axelrod as 17, Badfinger is 16, The Bee Gees is 10 and 11, Sly and the Family Stone is 5, 6, and 7, and Pink Floyd is 1 and 2. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, January 30th, we're coming at you with the Lenny Waronker Career Retrospective. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!